Welcome to 22 at the Lips. I am your podcast host, Alexis Hardwick. And if you are new to this journey, if you've been here along the way, one, thank you for sticking around. But two, if you are new, this is the podcast from EMS providers to EMS providers and healthcare providers and anybody and everybody in between. So whether you work on the ambulance, you're in the field, in the cusp of it all, or say you work as a tech in the hospital or you're a nurse, thank you for joining us. If you're a doctor, wow, you're above my pay grade. But or if you've just stumbled upon us and you don't know what this is EMS, healthcare, and the nitty-gritty of all the things in between. So, on this podcast, as many episodes have proven, I have guests that I've met along the way in my journey in this field and people I've come in contact with, a lot of cool people, and today is no exception. Today, I have Miss Amanda Hall. She is not only is she incredibly gorgeous, but she's also a wonderful person. She's done so many incredible things in her journey and has recently obtained a huge accomplishment that is not a small feat, FEAT, not feet. But
I was like, I know what shoe size I wear, girl.
girl, I don't talk about shoe size. I'm 5'7" and I got called Sasquatch in middle school. LOL.
Over here, so.
But Amanda's really awesome. I'm going to let her introduce herself, give her story, give her background. And with that, Amanda, the floor is yours. If you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for, go ahead, Queen.
Okay, hello, my name's Amanda. So I'm super excited to be here today. I met Alexis teaching paramedic school, and immediately we were like, okay, I really like this girl. She walked in and I was like, first I was like, who are you? Because you're not wearing a student uniform and you're not wearing an instructor one. She's like, oh, I'm here to train. And I was like, okay, I like this girl. First day, she tagged along with me, helped me with everything. She shared a lot of really great wisdom with the students. And at the end of the day, she told me she was coming back the next day. And she said, do I need to do anything for tomorrow? And I just looked at her with a deadpan face. And I was like, yeah, I need you to prepare a lecture on the Krebs cycle. And she looked at me, she goes, okay, bet. And I was like, okay, bet. And I said, make sure you have a PowerPoint. I gave her my email. And I thought she knew I was joking. And that night, I got an email from Alexis with an entire PowerPoint on the Krebs cycle. And as soon as I read that, I was like, yeah, we're going to be friends because this is amazing. She came the next morning and I was like, girl, I was totally kidding. I'm so sorry. And she said, I'll do it.
So like I knew you were joking and I fully I was like, nobody's really gonna expect, but I was like, since they're not expecting it, go ahead.
Yep. The fact that you put the time into that evening.
It was either that or watch Law and Order because it was the only thing playing in the hotel room. So I was like, all right, Krebs cycle it is. Because
I knew I loved you at that moment. So that's how I know Alexis. I think I got off track what I was supposed to be doing. But
your
yeah,
journey.
So that's my journey. Okay, so yeah, so I guess I'll just tell you kind of a little bit about myself. Do you want to know kind of how I got into EMS and where I'm at now? Sound good?
Yeah, go sis.
Okay.
It's all you.
Okay, so I got into EMS when I was at the very mature and experienced age of 18 years old.
Oh, baby, no.
Oh, God. I was at a point where I was like, okay, I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I didn't really have much going for me at that time. And it was either I'm going to go to EMT school or I'm going to join the military. And I was like, I don't think I want to be yelled at like that all the time. So I'm going to go to EMT school. Joke's on me. I still get yelled at all the time. So I went to EMT school. I did have an uncle in fire. I had a grandpa in law enforcement. So I've been around like emergency responders and I just knew, okay, that looks kind of cool. Went to EMT school. I started working in a hospital. I started teching. I loved working the ER. It was so fun. I was surrounded by all these just amazing doctors and nurses. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. Watching all the EMS crews come in and out, I was like, that looks amazing. That looks like really fun. I kind of want to be out there because I'm feeling kind of like locked up in here. So went to EMT school. I liked it. However, I did almost quit my first clinical, my first write-off. We went on a call. I didn't. It was a culture shock. I didn't realize how gross it was going to be. So I went on this first call, and first of all, two crews went on this one call for this lift assist, and I was like, oh no. And then they tell me, hey, you're going to want a double glove. And I was like,
Oh.
okay. So this call was a double glover, and there was like bugs in the bed and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, this is disgusting. I'm not doing this. And they're like, no, 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 it's not all like that. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. So, anyways, loved EMT school. Like I said, I worked in the ER for a little while, decided to go to paramedic school, did that. Um, and then I got on the ambulance, and I worked on the truck for 5 years. And after that, I started flying. I wanted to, flying was always a goal of mine. I just thought it looked really great. And if I back up, this is a cool full circle moment. While I was in paramedic school, I was doing a clinical at this tiny ER, and it's night. We had this super sick patient, and their flight comes to fly her out, and they say like, "Hey, we're going to tube her before we go. We're not flying her without tubing her." So the doctor's like, "Okay, go ahead and do it." Flight nurse looks at me and he says, "Hey, you're in paramedic school?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, come with us." So I go with him, and he's like, "I'm going to let you hold my equipment and help." I was like, "Okay, like I can help. I can do that." Mind you, this is like, we practice intubations in like school and things like that. So I'm like, I can't wait to watch this RSI experience. So I'm holding his equipment for him. And looking back now, I'm like, huh, LOL. He handed me the blade and the tube. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, I'm going to hand this to him. And he's great.
Right.
So his partner pushes the meds, and he looks at me and he's like, okay, intubate her. And I was like,
Oh.
no, back up. I can't do that. And he's like, you're in paramedic school. And I said, yeah. And he's like, have you done it before? I said, not on a live person. He's like, shut up. Don't say that. And I said, I've done it on mannequins. And, this is all going on over seconds. And then he's like, I'll help you. And so he guided me through my first intubation. Successful, first attempt, went great. I got that tube. I'm like shaking, and I'm like, that was awesome. Help them package their patient. We're walking out to the aircraft. They were just so nice to me and so just educational. I learned more in that little like 20 minutes than I had the whole time I've been in school and all of my clinicals. We're walking out to the aircraft, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I want to fly. I want to do this one day. And he like tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, you will. I believe it. You're going to fly. So fast forward, I applied for this flight program. He works there. It's the one that he worked at. And I got hired, and him and I became partners, and we worked together. I worked with several different partners, but him and I got to work together, and we always talked about like, hey, you remember that time? And it was really cool. And I actually got to work his last shift with him before he retired. So,
oh, stop.
it was so cool, and it meant a lot to me to be able to work with someone that watched me grow up as a medic from the very beginning. And he was so proud of me. He would tell people all the time, like, yeah, I taught her how to intubate and while she was in paramedic school. And he said, I remember her saying she wanted to fly, and I believed in her. And at that point in my life, I really, really needed people to believe in me. So it meant so much to me. It meant so much to me. So that's how I started flying, had that really cool full circle moment. Flying, like we can get into that in a little while. It has taught me so much. It humbled me in so many ways. You don't know what you don't know until you get into something like flight. It was so humbling. Started teaching paramedic school. That's how I met you. And then I went to nursing school, and then I got my nursing license. Do not be confused, listeners. I am still a paramedic. I'm a paramedic through and through. Respect to all my nursing cohorts out here. I'm a paramedic with a nursing license. I will be a paramedic till the day I die. It's just in my blood, and it's totally different. But I'm really glad that I did that because we can get paid a little bit more. And I know, and it did help round out my experience, and it gave me a lot more compassion for nurses in the hospital. And I know that can be kind of frustrating for EMS. But yeah, don't forget, I am still a paramedic. So that's where I'm at now. I'm currently still flying. I'm flying fixed wing and rotor wing, and then I'm also working in the ER on the side. So that's where I'm at. That's how I got here.
So much free time.
So much free time. It's wonderful. somehow I fit things in.
Amanda, what are you up to these days? Everything. Um,
Turns out I have 18 jobs. I'm about to go get my BSN. I just got my CFRN. That's what you were referencing earlier. So I got that for flying. I go on a couple little vacations here and there, get a couple workouts in, and that's what I do.
I only have my one main job, and it's a couple of rapid fire questions to really get to the nitty gritty of who you are.
Perfect. I've been practicing.
So off air, I told Amanda, I was like, all right, I'll be ready about 5 minutes. Let me get my coffee. And Amanda's like, oh, I'll get my kombucha. We are not the same. Kombucha. See, that's where I'm at. I inhale artificial caffeine, and you do workouts at like 6 a.m. and you'll post it on your Instagram. You're like, oh, look at this salad and like look at this salmon bowl and all this. And I'm like gouging on like 3 slices of pizza. I'm like, congrats, girl. Pop off, queen. That looks delicious.
But it's all about balance. I still enjoy some ice cream here and there and some cookies. I'm not going to pretend I don't enjoy that too. But I do genuinely enjoy the other things as well.
But Amanda, where is your favorite place on this earth?
Caribbean islands. Any of them, really. But Caribbean islands, put me on an island and I am a happy girl.
Like beach vibes?
Beach vibes. Total island girl in here. Back in January, I went to this random Caribbean island, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'd never heard of it before. I got an email about a flight deal to it, and I was like, cool, this ticket's really cheap. I Googled, where is this? Looked at Google for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, and I bought the ticket. And then I went on this little solo trip to the Caribbean island to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Spent a week there. So much fun. It was wonderful. So yeah, I'm a total island girl.
I love the beach, but also there's this thing about the beach where all you have to do is just go like put your foot on the sand. Like that's all you do. You pack up everything, pack up your floaties, pack up your I don't know, waveboards, wakeboards, whatever you want to call it. Pack up your umbrella, a cooler full of your sandwiches and your good stuff, all that. You go put one foot on the sand and then go get back in your car. And I promise you, by the time you get back home, there's going to be sand in every crevice of you and your vehicle. And
Rookie.
I love the beach. I hate that nitty gritty sandy feeling and the mystery, like getting in the shower and I'm like, where did all the sand come from? What? Love it though. Highly recommend. But
don't be surprised. And like, I always joke with my friends, my family. I'm like, oh, one day, like, y'all are just gonna see me post on Instagram or see a text where I'm like, oh yeah, I moved to this island, by the way, because I love them so much, and that's totally, totally on par for me. I'm the kind of person where I'll be like, hey, actually, I moved to Colorado last week, just so y'all know, or
surprise,
oh, surprise, I just got my nursing license. They're like, when did you go to school? And I'm like, oh, last year. Y'all didn't know? So. In about 5 years, if you see me post that I'm living on an island, do not be surprised.
I'll just actually be like, girl, give me that Addy. I'm coming.
Come on, drop by.
All right. Speaking of career field things, I want to ask another question, but first I have to ask, you have a lot of experience. What is the weirdest thing you've seen on a call?
Okay, I have a story that always pops to mind first, and you can totally cut this if this is too much for this podcast.
Probably won't. I probably won't cut it.
Like when people are sitting around, like swapping stories, I always look at someone and I'm like, hey, I'll bet you, or I'll ask this. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found in a skin fold? I bet you $100 I can beat you. So Alexis, what is yours? The weirdest thing you've ever found?
I've also noticed I've blocked out a lot of gross things that my partner will remind me of. She's like, remember when? I'm like, no, I don't. I know there was one I had to use to get a 12 lead. I had to use my arm, my entire like shoulder to elbow arm. I found a Walmart receipt, but that's about it. And when I handed it, I was like, what is the ink?
My Venmo is Amanda Lynn 719. Go ahead and send me the 100 because I'm about to. And anybody else listening, I'll also take Venmo. All right. So weirdest thing I ever found in a fat roll. I'll try to keep this brief. Good for you. I talk at 1.5 speed, so like we can get through this. All right. So, I'm on the ambulance. This is probably like, God, maybe like 6, 7 years ago. I'm on the ambulance. First of all, I'm working with a partner that I'm not really sure why he chose EMS because literally everything made him vomit or dry heave. Like,
Oh, geez.
anything, like everything. It was constantly like, huh, and I'd be like, dude, Bob, like you've got to like lock it up. So keep that in mind for this. So we get called out to a cardiac arrest one morning. We go in, adult daughter is in the house. She's freaking out. She's like, I think he's dead. And we're like, okay. We go in the back room. It's pretty gross house. There's like puppy pads everywhere and like chihuahuas running around and like this guy's laying on the bed sideways, naked, dead, one leg, about 500 pounds. I'm like, alrighty. I check on him. I was like, dude is dead. Like, I'm so sorry. You know, I go through the whole thing. Like, I'm so sorry. There's nothing we can do for him. He's dead. Blah, blah, blah. Get the JP out. Get the SO out. Get the funeral home out. We leave. A little while later, they call the station. They're like, hey, he's too heavy for the funeral home stretcher. Can y'all bring y'all back out and help us, like, get him in? We're like, okay. My boss tells them yes. And I'm like, if we have to go, you have to go. Like, you got to come.
Yeah.
You got to help us with this. So we go back out there. First of all, we roll up. Family's having a barbecue in the front yard. Like, there's like 20 people out in the yard, 30 people. There's a party happening. And I'm like, weird way to deal with this, but everybody responds to grief differently. So if you need to make brisket, go for it. So I don't know. Up to y'all. Not judging. Also, I'm hungry, so save me one. We go into the house. We go into this back room. It's been a while that this guy's been deceased. I bring our bariatric tarp in too, and I was like, okay, like here's my idea. I'm gonna stand on this bed beside him. Y'all roll him, like log roll him. I'm gonna start stuffing the tarp under him. My partner, for some reason, just gets up and stands on the bed beside me and is just like watching. I'm like, okay, you're super helpful. So I am pushing this tarp under him, like underhand, pushing this tarp under him, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's got such a hairy back. And I was like, hey, lift a little bit more. And I hear his skin folds like unsuction. And I hear like, and my hands, something plops into my arms, falls into my arms. And I'm like, well, what could that be? So I pull my arms out and I am holding a dead chihuahua. Stop, no.
Wait,
yep.
wait.
A dead chihuahua was in his skin fold. And I mean, over a course of seconds, I like scream. Not that shocks me, however, that did shock me. Dead chihuahua in my arms. I scream. I throw it. Like this is like a comedy scene. It turns into a straight comedy movie. I scream. I throw it in the air, and it's like slow motion sailing across the room. Hits the justice of the peace in the chest. He like catches it, drops it to the ground. Everyone's kind of like yelling. My partner is standing on the bed like. And I'm like, Bob, sorry, I'm trying not to say his name. Bob, bleep his name. I'm like, Bob, we're all together. Honestly, actually, you can't puke. It's fine. I get it this one time. People are like freaking out. One of the family members comes running to the doorway, and I had this like zoom out moment where I'm standing there and I'm like, I am 22 years old. What in my life brought me to this point where this just happened to me? What am I doing? People are literally sitting in offices right now listening to Spotify with a fan on them doing their work, and I just did that. Like, who chose this? The lady's like, what happened? And I think it was the JP was like, man, I'm so sorry. You don't want to see this. One of the chihuahuas was under him, and it's deceased as well. And she's like, oh yeah, we wondered if he might be under there. We were missing him all morning. We're like, okay, so of course, by the time we get back to the EMS station, I don't know. We get back to the EMS station. Everyone, fire, police, EMS, everyone's heard about this. I'm getting phone calls with voicemails of people like barking on my voicemail. It just became this thing. People like come wallpapering my locker with like pictures of chihuahuas or like. So that's the weirdest thing I found in a skin fold, and I think that was like honestly the peak of my career because it really shaped me to who I am today because truly nothing can shock me any longer. Will it concern me? Yes, but will it shock me? Probably not.
Oh God, I don't even know what.
go that way.
I'm like, I've heard of like a drumstick falling out or like something
Yeah,
like
like a
that,
poop
but
sandwich, like a
yeah,
little lettuce,
leftovers.
a
No.
remote control, a phone, some money. Not a chihuahua.
We were wondering where he went.
Yeah. So there you go.
I, oh man, I think I'd quit. I'm gonna be honest. I think
Honestly, that's the podcast. Thank y'all guys for listening today. That's a wrap. I hope
and
y'all
that's
learned a
me in
lot.
every episode. No.
Uh, yeah, I don't think we can really go up from there. I should have really saved that for later. We're only downhill from here. So yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Your face.
I'm gonna change your contact photo to just a chihuahua.
Oh,
Um,
great.
oh man. Uh,
We got the giggles now.
why is it okay? Why is it always chihuahuas though? That's the thing is that like you'll go in these houses and I mean like the parents who work out of and stuff like that. It's most times it's like either these like big like rescue mixed breeds and like they
Mm-hmm.
sound so scary but they're so sweet. Like you meet a lot of dogs along the way. Why is it's 90% chihuahuas. Like my grandmother has always had a chihuahua growing up. I don't hate dogs, but I really don't like chihuahua. I've never
Well, actually, if you like look into the history of EMS, the reason we started wearing boots is because chihuahuas will latch onto our ankles. So
Okay, it makes sense. Never mind.
I just made that up.
Oh, I believe the inside being a safe chihuahua is secure. Believe it. That's the okay, but that's like the how common it is that like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We wear boots over the ankles because chihuahuas. Like it makes sense. I get it.
I need to apologize to everyone how hard we're just going to be laughing this whole time.
Just here for a good time.
Okay.
Uh, after the past couple of shifts, I needed this, so I'm not mad.
All right, on to the seriousness.
Back to the real life topics. Um, oh man. Okay, so I got another question.
Shoot.
What is and this is like a two-parter. What is your favorite medication to give, and what is and slash or what is your favorite treatment? And what do I mean by that? My favorite medication to give is Zofran. Does it always work if they're actively vomiting? No. But it does it make me feel better? Yes. Also, I'm not queasy except for one thing that I can't talk about, can't think about without it making my stomach turn. Um, huh, it's not teeth in the mouth, it's when they're outside. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I so like vomiting isn't that thing where like I'll throw up too. Like it's not that. I hate it. I think it's embarrassing for the patient. It's embarrassed. I get secondhand embarrassment from it. So
I love
Zofran,
that.
good
Okay.
too.
Good
Favorite
match.
treatment, and this is also probably favorite medication too. I love breathing treatments. I love setting them up. I love the aerosolized smell. Is it probably because my lungs are as good of value as uh, something you find in the clearance bin in Walmart? Probably. But I feel better after just giving somebody a neck treatment. So like I that's my favorite. What are yours?
Hey, girl, whatever brings you peace, okay? I'm a big proponent of that. Man, my favorite med, I'm going to give kind of a broad answer on that titratable meds. So, like, we manage drips a lot flying, and I just like freaking love titratable meds. They're so much fun to me because it's like, okay, like, I get to play like a little, my little potions right here. Um, this is gonna make them better. This would make them worse. Okay, now they're doing worse, so let me make them better. I like balancing drips, so I would just say titratable meds. I like vasopressors. I love them. So that would be my favorite med. My favorite treatment slash interventions would be vent management. I I freaking love vent patients. I love how when if we have longer flights and we have an ABG, like a post intubation ABG, I can look at that and I can start working to try to fix this patient and get them in a better place. And I love getting to the receiving hospital And a lot of times they'll get a stat ABG, and then I'll hang around until they have the results. And I like to compare it. Like, did I do right by this patient? Are they better? Are they worse? And I learned so much from that. And like, okay, yeah, this technique, this method, this did work. So I would say that fit management would be my favorite like intervention. Does that count? Does that work?
No, it does.
Okay.
I I get that. I recently changed my life plan from like my next step is being an RT to now I want to be a PA because one, I'm not gonna lie, I saw salary and I was like, oh wow, what do you mean I can pay my bills and buy groceries in the same paycheck? But but I don't know. I, and it's mostly because it scares me. I'm currently enrolled in a CCT class right now.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Okay.
haven't even made it to day 1 yet, like, literally just I'm just enrolled. But, it that kinda stuff scares me at the same time. I know it's, like, the unfamiliarity, the unknown and stuff like that. It scares me, man. Scares me. So, hats off. It
It's good.
scares me.
I will say it's good that it scares you because it should. It the vet management, those critical like critical care interventions and medications, they should scare people in a way that you have a healthy fear of it and respect it because you realize like, oh, this is not throwing oxygen on somebody where like, okay, maybe they don't need it and like, okay, it's probably not the most beneficial. But like these are really like high risk interventions. If you mess up on it, if you do it wrong, like you could really hurt this person. You could kill them. So it's good that it makes you a little bit nervous. However, I'm really proud of you that you're going to do this class because you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's where we're going to grow and learn as clinicians. So I think you're going to kill it. I think you're going to be wonderful at it. And trust me, like stuff scares me every single day. Like I go on calls where I'm like, never done this before. My partner has, so they can show me, or we're going to learn this together.
I
So,
still look around for the adult in the room.
oh my God, Alexis, so like I said, I started when I was 18. I got my medic when I was 20. I was a lead medic at 20 years old. No business doing that.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Your girl's not even old enough to buy an alcoholic beverage by herself, but she's out here like I it's commendable. I'm not saying that's like a
The
jack
girl
like,
wasn't even
oh,
old enough to drive the ambulance yet.
no.
So yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I was so young. No business doing that. And I frequently was like looking around like, I'm the adult right now. This is terrifying. Well, you know, that's been 10 years. I'm about to be 30 and I still am looking around sometimes like, where's the adult? Oh, okay. I'm not the baby in the room anymore. What? What?
we huge wake up call for as far as like kind of in that mindset of also like understanding that like you grow along the way and you grow. The biggest thing I've realized as of pretty much recently is that like you don't realize even if like you have the comments of like, when somebody asks like, how long have you been in EMS? And I'll be like, oh, right now, like this August makes 4 years. I've been a paramedic for about almost 2.5, whatever. I don't realize like the growth process until it's those itty bitty gritty moments where it's like, oh, something has to be done like right now and I have to make the decision. For instance, me and my partner had to call some lady. I don't remember what it was. It was something that was so minor. Like I I made it BLS because I'm like, she doesn't need a 12 lead. She doesn't need an IV. She doesn't need anything. Like she needs to go to the hospital, but nothing that like warrants anything I need to do. So like we'll just transport you to the back. So it's the patient on the stretcher. We'll say 70-year-old Meemaw, and the
Mhm.
patient's daughter is also riding with. I'm driving, boop, 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 listening to my music. My partner's in the back. We're all just vibing, having a good time. And all of a sudden I hear, ma'am, ma'am. And so I'm turning on the
Oh
music. I'm
no.
the hairs on my neck are standing up. I'm like,
There it
oh
is.
no. And then I hear the daughter go, what's wrong? What's going on? And my partner
Yep.
says, Lex. And I'm already like, I'm not slamming. I think it cut out for a second.
Okay.
So I'm not like slamming on my brakes, but I'm like braking hard. I'm already pulling it. I'm like, I'm already a step ahead. Hold on. This woman had just, when I say went from like stable, I checked the vital signs 3 times with the whole like trend summary, completely stable to just stop breathing out of nowhere. Still to this day, have no clue why. But my partner, like, I opened the back door and I'm like, as I'm pulling a parking lot, I'm like, ABCs, Danny, ABCs. Also, I'm like, I don't know how to tell, like, from the front, tell this patient's daughter in the back, like, is she still breathing? So, so we pull over and like, my partner's like, Lex, and I'm already like, I yanked open the side door and I look at the daughter. I'm like, please step out really quick. And so like we don't let anybody ride with us ever since then. So I'm like in the back, and this woman, like, she's not looking good. She has that look where I'm like, are we about to do CPR? I grabbed
Is
my
this
hand.
goodbye?
That's what I was like. I've already had 2 of these before, ma'am. I don't want this tonight. I get off in an hour. So I grabbed my hand and I put my entire soul into this sternal rub. And this woman went, oh, and I went, oh God, thank you so much. Welcome back. And she's like, what
Good
are we
morning.
doing? Are we here yet? I'm like, ma'am. Um, but it was after that call that my partner was like, she was like, she was very shaken up. And so we were talking about, she's like, I don't think I want to be a paramedic. I don't think I want to do this. That was so scary. And I was like, Danny, I said, do you know what I would have done if I was in the back in that exact moment? She was like, what? I said, I would have done what you could have done. ABCs, like I screamed from the front, but also if needed, chest compressions, you can put on the defib pads, you can throw down an eye gel. I said,
Yeah.
were we going to ride this BLS to the hospital for the next 10 minutes? Absolutely not. But I said, there is nothing besides starting a line and giving epi, which I would have needed you there for anyways. There, you got this, sis. So all that to say, the coffee is kicking in at this exact moment. All that to say,
Yeah,
there's
my
a
kombucha is really slapping right now.
there's a lot of growth along the way that like you don't realize till in that moment. And we went home at the end of the show.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm in the shower and I'm thinking, I'm like, man, like I think I really had it together at that moment. And it was a very small, like, I don't pat myself on the back often because like the next shift, like I screwed something up really bad. But like everybody was fine, no patient harm. But
Right.
I don't know. But I literally like I'm in the shower. I pat myself on the back. I'm like, Alexis, look at you, almost grown up. Look at you. Go ahead.
You
No
should be so
problem.
proud of yourself with that too, because like being able to see that, like, hey, I responded to this so much better than I would have whenever I was brand new. I didn't freak out. I
Yep.
knew what to do. You should be so proud of yourself, girl. I love it.
One time it was like that early like new medic juju where you are released into the wild on your own and everything that could happen happens. I literally was in the back with a patient that was not doing good, and where I was working at the time, we were still 35 minutes from the hospital. And like I was doing everything I could, but in that one like 5-second span of time, there was nothing to do besides just like wait a second for
Yeah.
I put a non-rebreather on, something like that. And I remember just looking at the patient and I started tearing up. I'm like, can you please just be okay? So
Can you not do this today? Like, please. Can you please not?
I was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, everything. How far away are we? So
Oh God.
going just a little self-reflection of that too. Like just I've accepted that there are things that need to be done and prioritized. Like you learn along the way and just it is what it is. It's
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
big learning curve. Hmm. Um, and along your journey, speaking of, what what are some things that have like stuck out and lessons that you've learned that like you kind of carry with you? And then even like as far as teaching and stuff, things that we pass on because I don't have my CFR in. I'm gonna be honest, I'm never gonna get it. Kudos to you. Like queen. But I still have things that like my OG partner from like day one of EMS that I had for a hot minute, well into paramedic school. There are still things that like I hear his voice in the back of my head, like doing check off. I'll hear him be like, hey bro, how's the O2? Or like on different calls of like, bro,
Yeah.
don't do that. That's dumb. In the nicest way possible. But like little things like that and things that I've taught my partner as we've been working together for a year and stuff like that. What are those things for you?
Okay, so I it's funny. I was like thinking back because I felt like this was a question you're going to ask about my journey and lessons along the way. And I was like thinking about them. I'm like, what are they? What are they? What are they? Whenever you're trying to think of it, you don't know. But I wrote down a couple things because I was like, what are things that I would pass down to someone younger or people that are also in the field? Kind of things that I really hit on with my paramedic students. Obviously, there's all kinds of clinical lessons we can learn, and that's great. I feel like you have a lot of really experienced providers on here that share about their clinical, expertise. And I want to talk more about like the personal side of it and like, who we are as people in EMS is really important to me. And I think you were there the day when we were teaching and I started talking about like having an integrity and like being like personal ethics and morals in EMS and how important that is, how we're treating our patients. And I learned these things from my partners along the way and from the patients themselves. They've just taught me so much. We can literally learn things from our patients on how to treat people and how to be better providers and be able to connect with them better. So I think that probably like the first thing that I learned that, and I remember this was from an ER doctor, was to stay humble. And I remember asking him, I was like, oh, doctor, I can't even remember his name right now, Dr. Kirkpatrick. I was like, hey, you are so smart. Like, you're so brilliant. How do you know all this stuff? And how do you remember everything? And he was like, oh, you know what I do? I always remember that. And I said, and you're so nice too. And all the patients love you. He said, I always remember that there's always someone in the room that knows something I don't, whether it's the janitor who's paid attention to something, whether it's my unit clerk, the tech, the nurse, the patient, the EMS crew that comes in. There's always someone that knows something that I don't. And I can learn something from probably anybody if I just put my ego to the side and I listen. So that's something that I've always remembered. Like, I can always learn something from anyone, whether it's my student I'm precepting right now, my students in the classroom. My God, um, I learned so much teaching paramedic school because I gave my students an open door policy to correct me and then to refresh me on things or give their input and their ideas on stuff. I would tell them at the beginning of every live week, like, hey, if I say something wrong this week, please correct me because I'm human too. And maybe I forgot it. Maybe I misspeak. So I learned so much, or just asking them, how would you handle the situation? What would you do? And I do that with anybody because I want to learn and hear. So staying humble and being open to learning from other people, huge lesson for me. Um, Second thing is, and I learned this the hard way, attitude is so important. And entering into EMS as a young female, I was like, I gotta prove myself. I gotta let everybody know that I'm tough and I can handle this. And unfortunately, like, I was bullied a lot by these men who like did not feel like I belonged there. And so I
Yeah.
felt like, okay, the way to prove to them that I belong here is like I gotta be an asshole too. I got to
Yeah.
be really tough. And
Mhm.
I was. It's really unfortunate. And I tell my students this too. I'm like, um, it's really sad because I had such a bad attitude going into EMS that there's probably people who worked with me 10 years ago that still hate me. Like, if they heard my name now, because they don't know the person I am now, they're probably like, oh, Amanda Hall, like, she was awful. She was so miserable to work with because I had such a bad attitude trying to prove myself to people and
Yeah.
trying to be too tough. So attitude is so important. How we're portraying ourselves to other people's, how we're portraying ourselves to other people, and how we're acting. I'm like, we don't have to be rude. We can be cool. We can be so cool, and
Yeah.
we can be kind to people. Um, Tagging on to being kind, something that I learned and I have really implemented and try to share with people, especially when I'm training them, is like, hey, we go to these like we fly into a scene, and this applies to no matter where you're working in healthcare. When we go to get a patient from someone, it is so easy to backseat drive and be like, you did what? Why would you do this? Why did they do this? You messed up this, you messed up that.
Yeah.
That's very common. I think we're all guilty of it. We
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
into these small hospitals and we're just like, this is terrible. They made all these errors, whatever. So I had to, during COVID, I remember flying into a very small hospital to pick up a patient that they had on their med surg floor who's an ICU patient who had been there for days. They had no choice but to keep this patient and take care of them. There was nowhere for this patient to go. The care was not the standard. And I remember, like, I wasn't rude, but I just remember asking the nurse, like, why didn't y'all do XYZ? And she looked at me and she said, I'm a med surg nurse. I have no idea about any of this stuff. We're doing the best we can. And
Oh,
that hit me in that moment. And I was like, and I looked at her and I said, you're exactly right. You are doing the best you can. And I really appreciate you taking care of this patient. You did a really good job. And that was just like a turning point for me, such a lesson to me. And now I tell other people this. You should operate on the assumption that everyone is doing the best they can with the knowledge and resources they have.
yeah.
Maybe they don't know more than this. Maybe they've never had anybody take the time to teach them. Maybe they are literally maxed out on their resources. So we should operate on that assumption. And honestly, being a butthole to them is not going to open the door for any kind of teaching moment at all. As soon as you are rude to them or make them feel like they're an idiot, they are going to shut down. There will be no opportunity. So I think that it's really important to be like, be kind to these people and to anybody. Like that, it's not, it, it doesn't take extra effort, to be honest. So,
Oh.
what do you think about that one, Alexis?
It's hard.
It steps on
I
your toes, doesn't it? It's like,
so I definitely feel the everybody's doing the best they can. And like I'm not gonna say I haven't been in that situation where you're uh you're meeting the BLS crew who are on scene and they're doing XYZ, or oh my god, one time I intercepted with a a truck that like this medic and EMT were already on scene. They got there before us and like they
yeah.
weren't they should have transported, long story short, but it's neither here nor there. So we're getting a report from the medic who's like, yeah, we gave adenosine and we cardioverted and it didn't work, blah blah blah. And I was just I and there's no other way to say it. I was just being a little toot. And I just looked at her, I'm like, why are you transporting? And she looked at me and then she was like, well, our truck isn't ready. I'm like, well, that's not my problem. So that's like from the get go, I'm in the wrong. But I like she's going over all this stuff and I'm just like nitpicking every little thing because I was just frustrated that I don't know why. Like I don't know why I was frustrated that we were there. I don't know why I was frustrated that we were taking this patient. It ended up being a cool call. The patient was like super nice, but the whole time I'm just in that mindset. And looking back, I've actually I don't talk to that medic. That's neither here nor there. But the EMT, I've told her, I'm like, look, remember that call? And she was like, yeah. I was like, I'm so sorry for how I acted. She was like, girl, that wasn't on you. I'm like, no, that was on me, sis. Like it, yes, the whole thing was chaotic, but also like, girl, I was so in the wrong. But or
I
there's
love
other
that. I love this so much. I love the story.
I I let too many things sit with me overnight. But you have and then you know, you start talking about different calls and then people are like, "Oh, did you hear so and so went on this call?" And then like
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
"Oh, did you hear what so and so did about this patient?" And I've learned the hard way because I've been on the back end of people talking about the calls I've run and what
And they don't
I've
know what
done.
happened on that call.
And that my go-to is always I will give my 10 cents of like, well, I would have done this, but always end it with, but I wasn't there. I don't know what was going
Right.
on. Not my call, whatever. If it's somebody that I really know,
Ask them. Ask
I've
them
got
about
I
it.
was gonna say I've got too much attitude in my life at this point. I'll call them and be like, hey,
What happened
tell
on
me
your
about this
call? Because this is what I'm hearing.
and not sometimes even still, you know how people in EMS are like
Yeah.
there's always the people that want to one up everything. There's always the people that want to give like their 2 cents, but they can't back it up with anything. And so I've called somebody and I'm like, hey, I heard you went on this call. Like, what happened? And he's like, no, that's not what happened. Anyways, it's hard, especially in the moment when you have those situations where it's like, why didn't you do this? Or you look at family. Oh man. You go to a facility for a patient with a blood sugar of, I don't know, the equivalent of a Skittle, and and you're like, you look at the
I
facility
don't.
nurse. No, okay, blood sugar the equivalent of a piece of cardboard. Um,
0.
like 3, yeah.
Negative
Um,
40.
barely in the room with us, and so you look at the CNA and you're like, why? And she's like, well, it was low, so we gave insulin. And I'm like, what? And then they tried to feed them
Wrong.
orange juice. And so then on top of like, now your blood sugar is trash, but also now you've aspirated. It's very hard. And I did not choose the humble road of like, well, you panicked and you didn't know. No, I straight up was just like, this was the dumbest thing you ever could have done. Please exit this room. Then I just got sent to HR.
I think we're all guilty of that. And the cool thing about life and her journeys is I think we can all look back on moments where we were definitely not our best and
Yeah.
not presenting our best. We did something and like then now you is like, I can't believe I said that to somebody. I can't believe I did that. And I think that that's so valuable because like you look back and you have the secondhand embarrassment. But then you can actually be kind of proud of yourself because you can say, oh, you know what? The person I am now is so different from that person then that I recognize that that was terrible behavior. I recognize I treated someone so poorly and I would never do that now. So I really learned so much and I'm such a better person and I've grown so much. So,
I
yeah.
think it's I think it's harder whenever it's patients who give you feedback of like I'm very much in a state of burnout right now. I'll be honest.
Mhm.
I recently well, it's hard cuz like one shift I've never belittled a patient, but I definitely told this man, however you get to the ER bed, whether you have to put on a jetpack, I don't care, get to the ER bed.
Alexis.
Was
We
I will
fought.
say, was it warranted? Yes. Was I nicer than the ER staff for this patient and their circumstance? Yes. Because of
Yeah.
the whole thing. But we left and I got in the car, like I'm heading home and I'm like tearing up. I'm like, who am I? Like, what is but so like yes, that. But also, I'm sure frequent flyers me and my partner had one and we were not having a good shift because of so many other circumstances from dispatch and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We get to this patient and we're being nice to him, but I'm going to be honest, I wasn't giving my top dollar customer service
Yeah.
whatever representative. We were just being like nice, patient enough, going through the whole thing. We get to the hospital, and this man, I think he was our first patient of the entire shift. He looked at us and he's like, y'all are the nicest crew I've ever had. Thank you. And I'm not looking at him because I'm like feeling like trash. And I'm like, my guy, we have been bare minimum nice. And so we get in the hospital. I'm like, do you want a blanket? Is there
Yeah.
anything else I can do for you? It's the patients that say that kind of stuff that like or they'll ask us like yesterday I had one. He said, "Hey, what's your number?" I said, "I'm engaged." And he's like, "No, I didn't mean like that." Like very much that rapport where like I'm looking at him like
Yeah.
like
Those are so fun. I love those patients, to be honest.
we picked him up from his house and he had like the news playing or something like that and it was I forgot what the segment was, but it was like, oh, two women beat to death. And I looked at him, I was like, what you watching? He's like, it's background, baby. I ain't watching that. But
Oh my
so he's like, what's your ambulance number? So for me, it's like it's hard to kind of balance like that. You have the patients that I'm not saying they deserve to be talked to told that they can get a
There's
jetpack.
frustrating patients. Let's be real. There's frustrating patients. There
It,
are.
it's hard to take that, but also like the patient that you're just barely nice to and they thank you
I
and
know.
uh it's just it's hard because you have so many of those moments where like and I've said it from the beginning of my career and I still remind myself to this day of your last patient doesn't deserve to know like your frustrations or what happened on the last
Yeah.
call, that kind of stuff. And it's hard. Compassion fatigue is very prevalent. And it's not even just from patients, it's from ERs where I called one
Mhm.
yesterday. I'm going to vent just a touch. I
Oh no, go
called
for it.
that we were 5 minutes from a hospital. Patient had finished dialysis and had high blood pressure during the whole thing and then had chest pain after, but it went away. We are 5 minutes from this hospital. Granted, I did forget they don't have capacities of dialysis. You know what they do have? Transfer services, regardless.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
I call, we're like 6 minutes out. I'm like, hey, got to this patient, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, we don't have dialysis. I said, congratulations. I didn't ask if you did. She finished dialysis. Anyways, so they ended up, the nurse put the doctor on the phone, who proceeded to tell me, well, if she has chest pain, I'm admitting her. And we don't have dialysis. I said, you've never seen this patient. So I was like, so what you mean to tell me is you're rejecting this patient? And they're like, well, we can't take them because I'm like, all right, cool. I'm putting that report, hung it up. Immediately, my supervisor, I'm like, hey, you must be calling from this hospital. That's my bad. So we get the patient taken care of, but I'm still like, from that frustration and all the other things going on with so much other stuff, I'm just like, I'm fuming. And then we get another call and we get to this hospital. And before we even go in, I look at my partner. I'm like, we need a second. This patient does not deserve to know what we just went through, the frustrations we are going to have at the end of this call. Like they don't deserve this. Is it hard to remember that? Yes. But is it necessary? Yes. Unfortunately.
Tag on to this because I love this. This is something that I'm really passionate about because I definitely had in the past had suffered from compassion fatigue because of burnout. And something that this is going to sound like harsh, but I think it's real. Like my bad day is not their problem. Bad day is not their problem. My last call is not their problem.
Yeah.
That I and these are things that I started having to learn and like implement into my like thought process as I'm going into calls because um, sometimes I might not want to be here. I might not want to be at work today, but
Yeah.
I chose to be here. I chose to be here. I even if I signed a contract to work somewhere, whatever, I chose to be here, and I don't have to like I can leave at any time. I'm not going to jail if I don't like go to work tomorrow.
Feels like it, but I'm not.
It feels like it sometimes, but I'm not. So it doesn't really matter of where I'm at on the scale of wanting to be here today. The patients still deserve 100% of my effort, and they deserve kindness because they are humans too. And they may be frustrating, and there are very frustrating patients where it's like I'm reminding myself, Amanda, be polite, be professional, be polite, be professional. I don't have to sit there and rub their feet or anything like that, but I can be polite and be professional to them. It's not their problem that it's 3 a.m. and I have to go on this flight. I chose a job where I knew I was going to have to probably be up for 24 hours at a time. Not their problem.
Yeah.
And I started like reminding myself of that. And I'm like, I'm not going to show them like a rude face. I'm going to give them the care that they deserve and treat them like a person. Because what if it was my grandma that called 911 for something crazy? She's still my grandma that I love. I want somebody to treat her nicely, even if she called for something crazy. And I would be really frustrated if I found out they didn't. So I kind of remind myself of that. They deserve my politeness, they deserve my kindness, and they also just deserve my effort, like that I'm paying full attention, giving 100%. Because we aren't selling paper here. We are like literally have people's lives in our hands. So we have to take it so seriously.
Yeah.
But I have learned, so I had compassion burnout or compassion fatigue for sure. And I somehow like fell in love with EMS again. I was burned out. I almost quit. Before I started flying, I quit. I was leaving the truck and went to work in the ER for a little while because I was just burned out. I had a lot of really hard calls that I didn't really know how to process because of like the culture of EMS at the time. I worked literally, I was one of two women with like 30 men in the small private 911 service. There wasn't really this like culture of let's talk about things if you're having a hard call or whatever. I had a couple really hard calls, really bad. I didn't know how to process it. I'm sure I had PTSD from it. I was like, I hate this. I hate going to work every day. I hated my patients because I'm like, why are you calling 911? I literally just saw like 5 kids dead yesterday. Like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not funny, but yeah. Like,
yeah, and I'm just like, this is so annoying. Like, I'm so annoyed with you. Like, you have no idea. And then now I'm like, of course they had no idea because they had no idea. Like, they still felt like whatever they were calling for was a true emergency. And maybe it's poison ivy. I don't relate with that emergency. However, it was one to them. And being mean to them is not going to change the course of the call. I am still going to go on the call, whether I'm an asshole to them or not. So why not try to make it somewhat pleasant for them and me and whatever. So I started falling in love with EMS again. Flight saved my career for sure. I really fell in love with it again. I found a lot of purpose in it. I learned a lot. It just really pushed me out of my comfort zone. It scared me to death. The patient care part, flying was freaking awesome. The first time I went up, I was like, "Can you flip this bitch?" Like, this is amazing.
Do a barrel roll.
Yeah, do a barrel roll. I know. They're like, "This is a helicopter. We will die." But it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I started like learning, letting my patients teach me and learning from them and developing a lot of compassion for them. And like we can be so much to so many people, and really being there for patients and their family, like we can connect with them, we can give up ourselves to them. And there's this kind of culture of being like cold towards patients and their family, like do the call and get out.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be afraid of giving from ourselves personally to a patient. And that can be, you can see the change in their eyes, like whenever they feel like you truly care about them as a person. And it can be anything. Like they don't have to know about what's going on at my home, in my home life. They don't have to know how tired I am right now. And I like anything, like a little, give them a squeeze, a little arm squeeze, a shoulder pat, sometimes a hug. Some of these patients want a hug. You can give them a hug. I know. I'm going to
I've hugged like family members, obviously. I've hugged like family members in those, like, hey, I hate to tell you, like I cry with it, whatever.
Yeah.
But there was one patient I didn't, early into my career, I didn't give the chance to say no. They were just like, "Oh, well, thank you." And I'm like, they're in the hospital bed, and I just like put my arm on their shoulder, and they just like reached around, and I was like, So ever since that day, I'm like, ew, don't touch me.
Dude, it's funny because I'm not a hugger. Like my friends, we have jokes like, when's the last time we hugged? 5 years ago? I don't know. But patients, for some reason, love hugging me. And I'm like, okay, why not? I mean, okay. It's good. If that makes them feel better, like, okay, they're having a really bad day. And it can go such a long way. And then the other thing I do is it is not hard to make them a little bit more comfortable. And oftentimes our patients, like they can be grumpy and rude to us. And I've started trying to look into it more, like, why are they grumpy and rude right now? Is it because they are just kind of an asshole as a person? Is this who they are? Or are they uncomfortable? Are they in pain? Or are they scared right now? And a lot of times it's one of those three things. So I first try to like rule out like the discomfort and pain. And I'll just ask them like, hey, are you hurting right now? Obviously, like, oh yeah, I am. Okay, is this something I can medicate? Or is this something that just like a physical change, like repositioning, whatever it's going to do for them? I do that. Before leaving, like got a patient packaged up and like I'm about to leave this scene or this hospital or whatever, or in the ER before I'm going to leave the room, I ask the patient within reason, obviously if this person's like dying, we don't really have this. But I'll ask them like, hey, is there anything else I can do for you real quick that can help you be more comfortable right now? A blanket. Oh, can you cover my feet up? Anything like that? That takes me 3 seconds, and that's going to make them feel like, oh, this person actually cares about me. And I do. I do care about them. And then also, when a patient, whenever it's not one of those two things, if they're still just like really like kind of frustrated, I'll just tell them like, hey, you have a lot going on right now in this situation. You have this, and this going on. It makes a lot of sense if you would be scared and nervous right now. So is there anything I can do to explain this more to you? Is there anything you want to talk about? And I tell them like, it makes sense that you feel this way right now, that you would be frustrated or scared. And oftentimes there will just be like this complete like relief and shift of their face. And they'll be like, wait, what? She cares about this? And then they'll just dump something on me, whether it's they're worried about their kid at home, their dog at home, or you know what? Nobody actually explained to me what's wrong with me right now. Oh, well, I would be pretty pissed too. Or like, or they'll be like, yeah, I'm freaking out. I'm terrified. Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about that. Let's see what I can do about that. And you can really connect with your patients in a different way, and you can make it such a different experience. And one of the reasons I love EMS, and I think this is why I stay in EMS. I got into it because I thought it was going to be cool. I stay in it. Yes, I love the cool things we get to do. I love flying around in a helicopter. I love like getting to put chest tubes in and like, like I love to do all these cool things. That is really fun. But I'm naturally like, I'm someone who wants to help people. I want to do things for people. EMS is definitely my zone. I've worked in the hospital now, and I'm like, okay, this is necessary. Pre-hospital is my area, and because I think we are so privileged and we get such a cool opportunity. We are truly the only point in this patient's care from when this event started to when they're going to go home. We are the only point in their care that they are going to get actual, true one-on-one care. Maybe they're in the ICU with a one-on-one nurse. That nurse is still going to help other people with things, of course. Yeah. But hopefully you don't have more than one patient. That's a bad day if you're transporting more than one. How'd that happen? But 98% of the time, you are one-on-one, getting to give them dialed in, locked in, attentive care, and that can really change their whole perspective on this course. So they're like, okay, like you can start them out either negatively or positively, where they're hating it or loving it, whatever. So I think we have such a cool opportunity, and if we like kind of reframe our mindset to like, I have to go on this call right now, like, okay, I get to take care of this person right now. Like they trust me. They're trusting me right now. It can really start like changing your attitude towards it. And it's all practice. Like it's a practice. It's reminding yourself daily, like, okay, like I get to go on this call. I get to take care of this patient. I get to use my paramedic license I worked for. I get to pull a paycheck when I'm done with it. I get to go home tomorrow. I get to pay my bills because I'm here right now. And thinking about it that way can kind of really help a lot. And then it also kind of ties back into being able to be more compassionate towards people. So sorry, that was a whole rabbit trail, but that's like
don't apologize.
Something I've really been learning and shifted a lot in the last several years. And there are days that I am frustrated. There are days where I'm like, I just want to be at home right now. But I truly went from absolutely hating my job and hating my career. I really love it. I'm so passionate about it. I think that it's amazing what we get to do. I think it's amazing the people we get to take care of and that feedback from them. I actually had the same experience yesterday. I was working in the ER, not my favorite place. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to work there to get the experience. Not my favorite place. I had a patient and his wife, and they were requestive. I don't know what the word is. They had a lot of requests, and he had a migraine, and I was like, you know what, he feels bad right now. So every time I have the chance, I'm getting him another soda. I'm getting him another blanket. I'm doing these things. And then I'm just being cheerful with it, because me being like, I don't have time for you right now. It's not going to do anything.
It's not, yeah.
And a couple times I did have to say, hey, I can do that after I'm done taking care of this other patient, but I will circle back to this. And there was one point, he asked for a soda. I was literally so busy yesterday that it took me an hour to get it back to his room with that soda, because I'm like, that is not the priority. He was so grateful. He was like, thank you so much. And I said, so sorry it took me so long to get back. And he said, that's no problem. Thank you. I see you running around out there. Oh. Again, I felt like I was not my 100% patience with him, but I was trying really hard. And when I went to discharge him and his wife both, they said, thank you so much. We're so glad you're the one that took care of us. And I was like, oh, you're so welcome. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad I took care of you too, because I needed to be challenged. I'm thinking in my brain right now, I needed to challenge all my patients right now. And that's what I needed at this moment. So getting that feedback is just awesome to hear. And it's okay, I'm doing what I should be doing for these people.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.